The Acropolis of Athens is the most famous monument of ancient Greece. It consists of, among others, the Parthenon, the Erechtheion, the Proyles and many other remarkable buildings. Get to know them all. Do you know that the Acropolis can not only be found in Athens? You will encounter similar places, for example, in Mycenae, Pergamon, Thebes or Corinth. You may be wondering what an acropolis is. In Greek, acropolis means a city or a type of citadel with palaces and temples located on a high hill. They began to be established during the reign of the Mycenaean culture. In later times, acropolises were transformed into places for public use and religious worship. The Acropolis of Athens is also located on a high limestone hill with a relative height of about 70 meters. On three sides, the hill has steep cliffs, which definitely favored its defense. Its history is fascinating. The first traces of settlement appeared there as early as 4500 BC. However, the history of the hill as a typical acropolis begins in the 13th century BC, that is in the so-called Mycenaean period. The hill was surrounded by massive cyclopean masonry. A palace with a megaron was built, as well as residences for wealthier inhabitants. Interestingly, the hill was then called Athene or Athenae, therefore, some scientists believe that the famous goddess was named after it. In the 8th century, the role of the Acropolis definitely changed. It became the most important place of worship of Athena Polias, the goddess of the city. 2 centuries later, at the turn of the 6th and 5th century BC, the festival of Athena's birth, called Panathenaea, was introduced. Athens then became one of the most important cities. It was then that the first great temples were built which, unfortunately, have not survived to the present day. The Acropolis of Athens experienced its true rise in the 5th century BC. This is known as the Golden Age of Greece. It was when the buildings that you can admire today were built. The construction of the magnificent temples was initiated by the great Greek politician, Pericles, and the work was supervised by the famous sculptor, Phidias. He was also the author of the famous statue of Athena, which unfortunately burned down. Over the following centuries, the Acropolis was a well-known and frequently visited sanctuary. After the arrival of Christianity, some temples, including the Parthenon, were turned into churches. Later the Turks made mosques in these places. The wars caused the buildings on the hill fall into ruins. An Englishman, Lord Elgin, also contributed to this by taking a number of valuable sculptures, friezes and other details away to Great Britain. After Greece regained its independence, archaeological work began. In 1975, the renovation of the monument started, which continues to this day. Today, this magnificent complex is included in the UNESCO World Heritage List. You don't have to take notes. We have included all the practical info in the description below the video. That's where you can also find links with accommodation, tickets to attractions and tips on how to pay abroad so as not to overpay on currency conversions. Even from a distance you can see the dazzling white Acropolis towering over Athens. However, if you moved to the ancient times your eyes would see a completely different view. The hill was full of colors. The ancients loved strong colors, so all buildings, sculptures or friezes were covered with paints and sometimes coated with gold. During the latest research it was proved that the Greeks used intense Egyptian blue and red for certain. Once you enter the Acropolis, you will see a large gate in front of you. This is the Propyleion. Before you cross it, look to the right. There is a small but exceptionally beautiful temple of Athena Nike built in the Ionic style. Interestingly, the goddess of victory is portrayed here without wings. This is explained by legends. In one of them, the citizens of Athens stripped Nike of her wings to make her stay with them forever. Propyleion is a vestibule in Greek. It leads to the most important part of the hill, the temples. The gate is truly impressive. Built on a rectangular plan of white and grey marble, it is decorated with columns and porticos of the Doric order. Few people know that Propyleion was not completed because the Greeks ran out of money for it. To go through Propyleion you have to climb steep and slippery stairs. Also, be prepared for crowds in this place because the capacity is small and there are usually a lot of tourists. After passing the majestic gate, you will see the Parthenon. It is a true symbol and pride of Greece, but also one of the most important architectural works in the world. Built in the Doric style, it is the most perfect example of it. It was the temple of Athena Parthenos, Athena the Virgin. Hence its name, Parthenon. The Parthenon was built from 447 to 432 BC. Precious Pentelic marble brought from a quarry more than 20 kilometers away was used for its construction. The structure is really impressive. Built on a rectangular plan measuring 69.5 meters by September 30 meters, it has 46 columns 10.4 meters tall. The entire structure was topped with tympanums, metopes and decorative friezes. It rose to a height of almost 14 meters. The construction of the columns is very interesting. They look as if they were made of solid marble. This is ensured by a special joining method. Its additional advantage is the resistance of the columns to earthquakes. The entire structure is extremely harmonious because of its special proportions and use of curves. The Parthenon was, of course, painted in intense colors. The statue of Athena Parthenos designed by the brilliant Phidias stood in the temple. It was almost 13 meters long and was made of, among other materials, ivory and gold. Unfortunately, it has not survived to our times. It is only known from copies. In its long history, the Parthenon was also a church, a mosque, as well as a gunpowder depot. Many valuable sculptures and other parts of the building were destroyed or taken away to England, for example. Today the Greek government is trying to get them back, and the Parthenon has been undergoing renovation works for many years. For this reason, you can see the scaffolding during your tour. From the Parthenon you can walk to a wonderful viewpoint. Along the way, you'll pass places where other temples and buildings used to be located. Today, unfortunately, there's no trace of them. Actually, there are beautiful views from all over the hill, but this place attracts most enthusiasts of perfect panoramas. It is easy to find it as it's located near the Parthenon, and there is a mast with the Greek flag on a concrete platform. What are you able to see from the viewpoint? The vast city of Athens stretches around the Acropolis. Lots of white houses, with green hills and other monuments of the city sticking out, and in the distance you can see the mountains. You can look at it for hours, but there are still undiscovered monuments of the Acropolis waiting for you. From the viewpoint, it's best to head to the northern end of the hill where the Erectaion, the most important temple of ancient Athens, is located. Several gods who have been present on the Acropolis for centuries were worshipped in it. Among them Athenopolis, Erechtheus, the legendary king and founder of the Acropolis, Hephaestus, Zeus Hypatos and the hero Butes. The temple is very interesting in terms of architecture. It has 2 floors and consists of 3 blocks, which is due to the terrain. It was built in the Ionic order. The most interesting part of the building is the southern part, called Porch of Kore. This is a porch which, instead of typical columns, has caryatids, which are another symbol of the Acropolis. Each of the 6 young woman-shaped columns is different. Currently, you can see 5 of the original ones at the Acropolis Museum and the 6th at the British Museum. You are slowly finishing your tour of the Acropolis. After passing the Propyleion on the southern slopes of the Acropolis, you will see 2 magnificent theatres, the Theatre of Dionysus and the Odeon of Herod Atticus. You will see the first one right outside the gate. This is the Dionysus Theatre, dating back to the 4th century BC. Before that, the structure was makeshift, wooden, and was built in the 6th century BC. It was built in honor of Dionysus, the god of wine, joy, fertility and inspiration. On his feast day, that is during the Great Dionysia, performances were held there. Take a close look at it because it is the first theatre in the world on which other Greek theatres were modelled. It is considered the birthplace of Greek tragedy. The greatest Greek playwrights such as Sophocles, Aeschylus, Aristophanes, and Euripides performed their works here in front of the Greek audience. During its reconstruction in the 6th century, a massive auditorium was built that seated as many as 17,000 spectators. A stage building was also built. The whole thing had incredible acoustics, thanks to which words from the stage could be heard well even in the last rows. The Odeon of Herod Atticus is located on the southwestern slope and was built a little later, in 161 AD by Herod Atticus in honor of his late wife. The Odeon was slightly different in design from a traditional Greek theatre because it was covered with a roof for better acoustics. Today it is partially reconstructed and music concerts are held there. If you want to enter its premises, the only possibility is during a concert. You can visit the Acropolis all year round. The largest number of tourists visits, of course, from June to August. However, you must remember that in hot weather the hill is closed at noon and you can only visit it in the morning and evening. The best months to visit this magnificent monument are April, May, September and October. If you decide to go sightseeing in the summer, then be sure to take a bottle of water and something to cover your head. Also wear comfortable shoes because the terrain is often slippery and uneven. At the top there are free toilets and drinking fountains which you can use. If you are wondering how much time you need for a tour, we are here to answer. An hour is enough for a quick and cursory tour. However, if you want to see all the buildings in detail and contemplate the vast panoramas sweeping from the hill, you will need to spend a little more time there. While visiting, remember that all these amazing buildings were built without the use of the machinery known today. However, they are proof of the ancient Greeks' perfect mastery of mathematics and physics, as well as their excellent sense of beauty. If you're already planning your trip, you can find accommodation and tickets to attractions on the spot in the links under the video description. You can also order a card for cheap payments abroad the same way. Press the bell and subscribe to our channel if you want to receive notifications about new episodes. Have a nice trip.